In the 20th century, if you walked into a room of urban planners or economists and asked them what made a city successful, they would almost certainly give you a single-word answer: efficiency. For decades, we were obsessed with optimization. We wanted to know how to move the most cars down a highway, how to build the tallest towers on the smallest plots of land, and how to concentrate specialized industries to create massive engines of growth. The logic was linear, and at the time, it seemed flawless. You had Detroit for cars, Pittsburgh for steel, and Las Vegas for tourism. These were specialized machines designed for maximum output. But here is the thing about machines: they are brittle. If you optimize a system perfectly for one specific set of conditions, it tends to shatter the moment those conditions change. And if the 21st century has taught us anything, it is that conditions are going to change, and they are going to change violently. We have moved from an era of stability to an era of volatility. Between the 2008 financial crisis, the COVID-19 pandemic, accelerating climate disasters, and geopolitical instability, the old model of the efficient city is failing. This is why the most important conversation happening in urban planning right now isn't about how to make a city rich, but how to make it durable. This is the rise of urban economic resilience. Today, we are going to take a deep dive into what that actually means. We are going to look at the anatomy of a city that can take a punch, analyze why some famous cities collapsed, and explore the science fiction level technology and radical economic theories that are building the unbreakable cities of the future. To understand resilience, we first have to define what we are actually fighting against. In this field, we distinguish between two things: shocks and stresses. A shock is an acute, sudden event. Think of a hurricane, a terror attack, or a stock market crash. It hits hard and fast. A stress, on the other hand, is chronic. It is high unemployment, an aging infrastructure, or endemic poverty. These are slow-burning pressures. The core philosophy of resilient planning is that you have to fix the stresses to survive the shocks. Think of it like the human body. If you have a compromised immune system, which is a stress, a common cold, which is a shock, can be fatal. Similarly, if a city has massive wealth inequality, a pandemic will tear it apart. If a city has a diversified economy, a recession in one sector is just a bump in the road. This brings us to the 4 pillars that organizations like the Rockefeller Foundation use to measure a city's immune system: economic diversity, redundancy, adaptability, and social cohesion. Efficiency hates redundancy. Efficiency says, why have 2 supply chains when one is cheaper? Resilience says, you need a spare tire for the entire metropolis. But let's move from theory to reality, because the best way to understand resilience is to look at fragility. We have 2 perfect case studies of fragility: Detroit and Venice. For half a century, Detroit was the wealthiest city in America per capita. It was the Silicon Valley of the automotive world. But its success was built on a fatal flaw: monoculture. It relied entirely on one industry. When the auto industry sneezed, due to automation and globalization, Detroit caught pneumonia. The city simply could not pivot. Its infrastructure and workforce were too rigid. By 2013, Detroit filed for the largest municipal bankruptcy in U.S. history. The lesson there isn't just about cars. It is that you can never let a single industry capture your city's soul. However, Detroit is now becoming a model for recovery resilience. They are diversifying into fintech and mobility services, and using adaptive reuse to turn old factories into mixed-use hubs. They are learning to bounce forward, not just back. Then you have Venice. Venice is fragile in a completely different way. By 2019, Venice had become what urbanists call a hedge city. It was a place where global capital was parked in real estate, driving up costs for locals, while the economy became a monoculture of tourism. They had 30 million visitors a year, but fewer than 50,000 actual residents. When COVID-19 hit, the tourism economy evaporated overnight. Venice became a ghost town because it had no immune system. It had no residents to keep the lights on. The critical lesson from Venice is that economic resilience requires residents, not just investors. A city that cannot house its own workers is structurally unsound. So how do we fix this? How do we build cities that don't just survive but thrive in chaos? One of the most profound shifts we are seeing is the move from a linear economy, which is take, make, waste, to a circular economy. This is not just about recycling. It is a fundamental redesign of how value flows. Amsterdam is the global laboratory for this. In 2020, Amsterdam formally adopted the donut economics model. Imagine a donut. The inner ring is the social foundation. Everyone needs housing, food, and water. The outer ring is the ecological ceiling. We cannot destroy the planet. The safe space for humanity is inside the dough. To stay in that dough, Amsterdam is treating buildings as material banks. This is a fascinating concept. Every beam, window, and brick in a new building is digitally passported and tracked. When a building is demolished in 20 or 30 years, its parts aren't sent to a landfill. They are sold for reuse. This insulates the local construction industry from global supply chain shocks and raw material price spikes. They are also using zoning laws to protect low-margin businesses like repair cafes, recognizing that being able to repair goods makes a community more self-reliant during a crisis. Just down the road in Rotterdam, they're taking a similar approach to climate change. Rotterdam is a delta city. It faces existential threats from rising sea levels. But instead of just building higher walls, which is a defensive and brittle strategy, they have embraced the blue economy. They build public plazas that are dry amphitheaters in good weather, but are designed to deliberately flood during storms, acting as retention basins. They are turning a liability into an amenity. They are even building floating offices that rise and fall with the tides. This is the ultimate adaptive infrastructure. But let's talk about the digital layer, because resilience in the 2020s is heavily data-driven. We are moving beyond the buzzword of smart cities and entering the era of cognitive cities. The key technology here is the digital twin. A digital twin is a virtual replica of a city. Every building, pipe, road, and bus line powered by real-time data. Singapore has one of the most advanced digital twins in the world. They don't just use it to watch traffic, they use it for economic scenario planning. They can run a simulation that asks, what if a new pandemic hits and we have to shut down the central business district? The twin models the ripple effects. It shows which small businesses go bankrupt, how public transit revenue crashes, and where food supply chains break. This allows policymakers to pre-design interventions, like targeted grants, before the crisis even happens. It is like a flight simulator for mayors. In Herrenberg, Germany, they are taking this a step further by adding socioeconomic feedback. Citizens use an app to tag areas where they feel unsafe, or where businesses are struggling, feeding soft data into the hard model of the city. This allows planners to address neighborhood decay before it becomes irreversible. Artificial intelligence is also reshaping the labor market resilience. We often hear about AI taking jobs, but in a resilient city, AI is used to future-proof the workforce. We are seeing the rise of predictive reskilling. Instead of waiting for a factory to close and then wondering how to retrain thousands of workers, resilient cities use AI to analyze job posting trends in real time. If the data shows a 20% drop in demand for administrative clerks and a 40% rise in demand for data security analysts, the city's community colleges can adjust their curriculum immediately. It aligns the workforce with the market before the unemployment shock hits. Now, all this technology is great, but we cannot ignore the hardware of human connection. Sociologist Eric Klinenberg coined the term social infrastructure. He found that during the 1995 Chicago heatwave, neighborhoods with robust social infrastructure, places like libraries, parks, and community centers where people knew their neighbors, had drastically lower death rates, even when you controlled for income. In a resilient economy, trust is a form of currency. When a shock hits, high-trust communities share resources, provide childcare, and loan money. This is why modern urban planners are realizing that a library is not just a book warehouse, it is a resilience hub. It provides free Wi-Fi for gig workers, cool air during heat waves, and skills training for the unemployed. Investing in these palaces for the people is an economic stimulus that pays massive dividends during a crisis. This social logic also underpins the 15-minute city concept, popularized by Paris Mayor Anne Hidalgo. The idea is that all your daily needs should be within a 15-minute walk or bike ride. This is often framed as an environmental policy, but it is actually a massive economic resilience strategy. It de-risks commutes. If there is an oil crisis or a transit strike, the economy of a 15-minute city keeps humming because workers can walk to their jobs. It also traps capital locally. Money spent at a local baker circulates in the community 3 or 4 times longer than money spent at a big box store on the highway. Finally, we have to talk about how we pay for all of this. The policy toolkit is evolving rapidly. We are seeing the rise of resilience bonds. These are financial instruments that link insurance premiums to infrastructure. If a city builds a seawall or upgrades its drainage, the risk of catastrophe drops. Insurance markets effectively rebate that avoided loss value to the city, which helps pay the interest on the bond. It turns risk reduction into a bankable asset. We are also seeing adaptive zoning. Rigid zoning is the enemy of resilience. Instead of saying this zone is only for factories, planners are moving to performance-based zoning. They say this zone allows any activity that generates less than a certain amount of noise and traffic. This allows light manufacturing, like 3D printing, to sit right next to offices and apartments, fostering innovation districts. And in coastal cities, planners are having the hard conversation about managed retreat. They are using transfer of development rights to compensate landowners for moving their investments from flood-prone areas to higher ground. So, what does the city of 2050 look like? It will look very different from the gleaming, efficient city of the year 2000. It might look a bit messier. It will have redundant power grids and overlapping supply chains. It will have wild parks that act as flood sponges. Its buildings will be modular, designed to be disassembled rather than demolished. Its economy will be a hybrid of high-tech global services and hyper-local circular craftsmanship. But most importantly, it will be a city that values survival over speed. As we face a century of uncertainty, the cities that thrive will not be the ones that tried to conquer nature or the market, but the ones that learn to dance with them. They will be the ones that can absorb the blows, pivot with grace, and protect their most valuable asset, the people who call them home. This is the new urban reality. Efficiency is dead. Long live resilience.